Hi guys, welcome into the War Story podcast with me, Garen Jones. Thanks for everyone that messaged last week about last week's episode. Thanks for everyone that shared it. Saw a few of those going out on social media and things, and a few of you got in touch to let us know that you've been doing that. So appreciate that. Anyone who's joined us for the first time, welcome. The aim of this podcast is pretty simple, really. It's to get war stories out of people's heads and onto recordings before we get too old to remember them, basically. Pretty much as simple as that. And hopefully when you're listening, you might learn something. You might. I found today's conversation really interesting myself because I'd been in Iraq at the same time as our guest. And it's always interesting to hear someone's different perspective who was there at the same time as you, that kind of thing. So sure, a few of you listening will probably have been out there around the same time as well. So I hope you get something extra special out of it. As I said before, guys, really, it's pretty simple on the show. Don't run ads on here, no advertisements. If you enjoy what you're listening to, if you feel like you get value out of it, then all we ask is that you share it. We'll take care of the recording end. Costs, anything like that, and so all we ask in return is that you bring us a friend along for every episode that you listen to, and if you think the stories are worth listening to, then other people will do too, so don't keep them to yourself. I did have something else to say and I'm blanking on what it was. So it can't have been that important, really. So let's just get into today's guest. Carl Williams served in the Royal Tank Regiment. He is another Welsh guest. I know you're not all Welsh listeners, and I have been very kind in bringing you a lot of Welsh guests recently, but we will have some Englanders on other nationalities soon. Oh yeah, that's what it was. If you're interested in being on the podcast, guys, then get in touch. Let us know. We're welcome to pretty much anyone. Just drop us a message. Let us know what you got up to in your service, when you served, where you served, all that kind of stuff, and we'll stick it down on the list. The idea is to get as many of these done as possible, and to that end, actually, you will notice today, the last episode had very kind of, let's say, creamy, rich recording sound, and the reason for that was because we were in a professional studio with Peter. Peter down here at his studio in Audio Cafe in Wrexham. What I'm recording right now is on my laptop, and the reason why is because I can't get down to the studio all the time, and I want to keep these episodes coming out on a weekly basis. So in order to do that, it means doing some of them from home. So hopefully the audio quality is still good. I've had a listen. I think it sounds all right, but it's not going to be as good as we get in the studio. But I hope you'll agree that, we'll try and do as many in the studio as we can, but sometimes it's best to just kind of keep the tap open and keep these episodes coming out. So without further ado, please give a very warm welcome to our guest, Mr. Carl Williams. Let's start back at the beginning, mate. Can you just fill us in on the very Billy basics, like where you're from, and when was it that you first started having an inclination that you wanted to serve in the army?
So I wouldn't really say I've got anywhere where I'm from because my dad's in the military, or he was in the military. So I'm a pad rat basically. So I grew up all my family are from Holyhead in North Wales, Anglesey, and then my dad joined the Navy, so he's a submariner. So I grew up initially in Faslane, Scotland, and then we moved many times to like Plymouth, Portsmouth, and London. We ended up managed to settle in London, but it was like multiple times between Plymouth and Scotland. So for a period of time when I was younger, they put me in boarding school to try and give me some sort of settled education. But the sort of person I am, I was a little shit, so I was pissing around in school, and then I ended up getting kicked out of boarding school. So I ended up just basically bouncing between Scotland, Plymouth, and then when I turned, I think it was about 13, moved to London, and my dad managed to get postings basically within London for quite a few years then. So did the whole of my secondary school in London area. So I'd say for me, that's kind of home. So yeah, that's growing up. That's what it was really.
Was there one particular incident that got you kicked out, or was it just a general kind of you just wore them out over top, up and down?
No, I wasn't really like a bad kid, but I was just the class clown sort of thing. So this school, yeah, I can't remember how much it was. I think it's something like 4 or 5 grand a month, 4 or 5 grand like school fees, which I think the military subsidised. But my parents didn't have a load of money then anyway, because my dad hadn't worked, wasn't that high at the time. And there was this thing, we used to have a thing called prep, like every night you'd have to do like your homework and you'd be in this classroom. And my parents lived in Scotland at the time. And me being me, I was just pissing around in the classroom, jumping from table to table. And little did I know, my parents had come to surprise me to come pick me up. So the matron that was there, she was saying to my parents, like, if you just don't mind being quiet, we go in the classroom here, I'll be doing this prep with all the other kids. And my mum and dad were like, oh yeah, no worries. And then they open the door and then they see me jumping from table to table. And my face just dropped. I just dropped back in my seat and I was like, oh, no. But yeah, that then basically I was just constantly in some up to no good really. And I was on my headmaster's report. And then I basically just had enough, like, because my mum and dad knew one day they left me at school and I just stood in the window like a little orphan, gutted they were leaving. And my dad was like, nah, let's just get him out of there. So they got me back to like a normal public school, state school sort of thing, which suited me better anyway, really. But I think they say they were trying to give me a better education, but I honestly think they were doing it to get rid of me because I was the naughty one. And my sister was the better behaved one.
So you one sister?
Yeah, I got one sister, yeah.
Older, younger?
She's 2 years younger.
Yeah.
But
so what was it like then when your dad would go, your dad would go away for like long periods, I'm assuming also?
Do you know, it wasn't, I don't remember it being difficult because since I was basically, my dad had been in the Navy since I was born. So he joined when I think they could join at 15 and a half at the time. So my whole life, I've always been used to, like, he'll be home for like 7 months sort of thing. And then they'd go on like a patrol out on the submarines for like, they can be like a few months up to 4 or 5 months to go off to America so I was kind of used to it, to be honest. I don't know, I can't really remember what it was like as a kid, how I would have felt, but obviously I'd miss my dad, or he'd come home and he'd always come home with some sort of like, he'd bought something for me and my sister, so we'd always look forward to him coming home. But I don't really think, to be honest with you, I don't really think it had like an effect on me. I think it's just something you get used to, really.
Yeah. And then what about like grandparents? Did they served in the military as well?
Yeah, my dad's dad, he was in Welsh Fusiliers, and my dad's brother was also Welsh Fusiliers as well.
Right.
So we've got a bit of a family, like military sort of history in the family sort of thing. So that was definitely what planted the seed in my head to join, because obviously I was surrounded by it when I was younger. So when I got to obviously like GCSE years, I was obviously thinking, what do I want to do? And my old man was sort of saying like, do you want to join the Navy sort of thing? And I was thinking, no way, because he's a submariner and they used to have to do this thing called the tank. And it's basically, you go in some deep tube, the room fills up with water. You ain't got like any sort of breathing apparatus. The water fills over your head and they open it and you have to swim to the top. And when I heard about that, I was like, not a chance. But we were living in London at the time and we were walking past, it's closed now, it's RAF Uxbridge. And there was a massive sort of like military fair there. And I remember just seeing the army there. And I remember seeing this infantry bod with all the kit on. As a kid, I thought it looked really cool. And I said to my dad, that's what I want to do. And he was saying basically, so I wanted to join the Welsh Fusiliers, like my family all being Welsh and stuff. And then he was like, no, like get a trade. And because obviously him being in the military, you can see it for what it is. So I marched myself down to Wembley Careers Office. And then there was a PWRR sergeant there, and he was obviously trying to get me in to join his one because he was in the local regiment at the time. And I was like, nah, I sort of want to explore my options. Did that silly barb testing, which anyone could pass. And basically they offered me the list of jobs, which you probably know yourself. And then the two that stood out to me was obviously the Tank Regiment and the artillery. And it's not hard to blag a 16-year-old to join a tank regiment. As soon as they stick that video on with the music on it and stuff, I was just like, yeah, I want to do that. I had no idea what it entailed, but I was like, yeah, I want to get involved in that. But it definitely appealed to me as well, because I didn't want to join a unit where if you did go anywhere, you wouldn't really be involved in anything. So it was kind of best of both worlds, because you get a little bit of the engineering side of things, like working on the tanks, and then obviously crewing the vehicle as well. And then obviously you get to like the pretty decent stuff on tour as well.
So what year would this be then when you joined?
2000. I joined in 2003. So I joined like at the minimum age. I think it was 16 and a bit. I basically had to wait a little bit because I had fixed braces at the time, so I had to wait for them to come out. And then I did the selection thing at Purbright for a couple of days, and then got through that. And then basically I ended up going to Bassingbourne, which is like a mini Harrogate. I don't know if you know it. It's in Cambridge.
Right. Yes. And that was like specifically for like Royal Army Corps, was it?
No, it was mixed cap badges. There was a lot of, in my company, there was like loads of engineers, and there was a few Army Air Corps, but there was a few infantry there as well. I'm sure there was infantry there, but it was a big mix of cap badges. And I think it was more geared up to, it's called like a junior leader sort of thing. So it was 6 months, and you basically do a little bit extra classroom work, but it wasn't the whole, because when they offered me Harrogate and they said the training was a year long, I was like, not a chance. I'm not doing a year in training. And then, so it's kind of like in between like the adult 12-week sort of basic and then the Harrogate sort of year. So I think it was like just under 6 months.
And when you joined there, 2003, had the Iraq invasion already happened?
No, it hadn't happened at the time. And it was weird because I remember I was doing, I think it was like one of them week 6 sort of inspection sort of things. And there was a family day sort of thing going on. And my old man couldn't obviously be there because he was at work. And he basically rang me saying, at the time, he said, he just said to me, watch the news tonight. Nothing had actually happened. And I was like, but at the time, my dad was working in the nuclear firing chain in central London. So he was obviously involved with the Tomahawks and that all coming off the subs and the boats and stuff, or ships, whatever they call them. And so I was just sort of thinking, what's going on here? And then obviously the news came on, and then so when I was in basic training, that's when they like initiated the invasion of Iraq. I think it was the bombing campaign first, and then whatever happened after that. So that started when I was in basic.
And did that change your feelings in any way, positive or negative, towards what you joined up for?
You know what? I don't really think it had an effect on me at all, because I didn't join thinking, oh, I'm going to go away anywhere, but not thinking I wouldn't either. So I wasn't particularly like, I didn't have the same sort of thought. I didn't have the thoughts of, oh, I'm going to get to go away, or I'm going to be doing that, because I was literally in the beginning stage of my basic training. I thought, is that really going to still be going on? Like by the time I get to because obviously I had to do phase 2 and then obviously get to the unit, and I was thinking, and I was 16 at the time as well. I think you had to be 18 to go away. And I was thinking, that's never going to be going on still. So it kind of went, yeah, silly. Silly when you think that, really. But yeah, I thought, I'm not even 18 yet. It wasn't even a thought in my head, really. I just sort of tracked it on the YouTube and then sort of just put it to the back of my head, really.
So would it be fair to say that you joined the army for a job rather than like to go on operations? Like, obviously you probably expected that you might go on operations, but was it like job first, operations second kind of thing?
For me, it was more, I wanted to sort of do the same sort of thing that my family members had done. So like, do your sort of, and that sounded a bit corny, but like a bit patriotic. I did want to do my bit, and I wanted to obviously, people at school thinking you can't do it, and you're like, yeah, watch, I'll be able to get through it and all that sort of stuff. And I was like the smallest kid in the year as well. So I was thinking that I had almost like a little point of proof. So it was that, and the fact that I didn't really take to school. I didn't really want to go to uni or college or anything like that. I didn't really take to schooling. The only thing I really enjoyed was history and like sports like playing football. So I thought the military was it was the perfect thing for me, really. I was used to being away as a kid, and it was an active job, and family members. Obviously, I've never heard it. I was always hearing, which is weird, like positive things about the military. Like as a kid growing up and being surrounded by it, it was almost normal. So for me, it wasn't just a job. It was just something I felt like I needed to do.
Right. So literally, it was just like a part of your life. It just seemed like a natural continuation to
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
take stuff. So when you mentioned playing football, was like sports a big part of your upbringing?
Yeah, obviously growing up on the estate with the other kids and that, was playing football, and playing football for like your school teams, and then playing Saturday league and that. I was never good enough to making it like cause any waves. I used to be really pretty decent at rugby when I was a kid, but I'll be honest, I can't stand it. I find it quite boring. So I was like, I didn't really, I had the ability to like do quite well at it. I think I was getting scouted for other teams and stuff. I lived in London, and then I just lost interest in it, and then just gave up on it. But for me, I love sports. Even now, I still play like when I can, and I'm more into like just training at the gym now. But I still play football when I can.
Was that team sport something you found kind of benefited you once you were in training in the military environment?
Um, I never really thought of it like that, but subconsciously, probably yeah, it would have, because obviously like teamwork, all that sort of stuff. But to be honest with you, like meeting new people also wasn't very difficult for me, because I was so used to it. Every 2 years, I was moving school, so I wasn't intimidated. You know, like some people say, oh, when they got to basic, it was intimidating. There's just loads of different people there. For me, it was just like joining another school. I was very used to just meeting new people. But yeah, I do think it, but like you say, yeah, the sports side of things definitely, I think, would have benefited me in some ways.
Anything particular stand out from your time during training?
Mm, not particularly. It was pretty non-eventful, really. It was very like very standard. It was just was interesting to see how like they can change you and stuff. Obviously, you rock up as a civvy and you got no sort of clue of what's going on, and then by the time you get out of there, sort of like you think you're the polished article, but you're not. You're obviously not. But it was quite interesting to see like how drastically they could change you. And looking back on it now, obviously I wouldn't have seen it as when I was younger, but it's mental how they get you to join the military, how they can get you to join the military that young, because I was by no means mature. I had no idea. I was just a kid basically, and I don't like using the word brainwashing, but it clearly it clearly is.
What's your kind of opinion on that now? Because, I've spoken to, lads like we had Andy Williams on the other day, and, he had a pretty turbulent kind of upbringing ways. And, I think he was really kind of glad to get in at 16. And then, then there's the other side of the argument, which is, like you said, when you're 16, you don't really know exactly what you're signing up for, do you? So, like, where do you kind of fall on that?
A bit of boring. I'd probably be sat on the fence, because once I got out of the army and I spoke to them and they were saying, you joined that young, and they were like, do you not think that's brainwashing? And I was like, at first it put my back up a bit, and I was like, you cheeky, like thinking I'm too stupid to realise what I'm doing. But when you look at it, I know the military like to say it's you're a good age to be moulded. I think that's just I think that's just a soft way of saying you're a good age to be brainwashed. But but on the flip side, I don't regret joining that early at all, and I wouldn't, if I had the opportunity to do it again, I would have done it again,
Yeah.
because I feel, on the positive side, I feel like it can stop a lot of young lads or young girls getting in trouble, because if I didn't join the military, who knows where I would have ended up, because I was at that age where I was starting to mess about a bit, like police knocking on the door sort of thing at home when you're a kid. And I was thinking, and you think to yourself, if you didn't have the opportunity to join the military that young, what else could you do? Because I definitely wasn't going to stay in school.
Yeah, something's going to mold you in it.
Yeah.
It's going to be something. So
Yeah.
it's just we won't, mate. So when you were at Basingbourn, did you know specifically that you'd be going to RTR, or do you just join? Is it like a corps? You join a corps and then you get filtered down.
So I definitely from what I remember, I was cat badged. I wanted to join the Royal Tank Regiment, and I don't think at that stage I knew if I was 1 or 2 RTR, but I might have been initially cat badged 1 RTR, which I didn't know too much about the differences between 1 and 2. I just knew it was the Royal Tank Regiment, and I thought our first Royal Tank Regiment is the first one, so let's just go with that one. When I went to phase 2, I remember meeting all, because there was only one other tanky at Bassingbourn at the time, and he was in a different company, so I didn't really speak to him. We ended up being really good mates in the end. But when I got to Bassingbourn, I met other lads who were joining the tank regiment, because it was all armoured corps there, at Bovington, sorry, all armoured corps there. And they were like, "Why are you going 1 RTR?" And I was like, "What are you on about?" And they were like, you sound like you're from London." I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "It's all Scousers and jocks in 1 RTR." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, all the lads I got on with as well were 2 RTR in Bovington." So I went to the troop corporal's office saying, "Look, I didn't know 1 RTR was Scousers and jocks. Not that I got an issue with them, but I want to be 2 RTR." And they were like, "All right, no worries." Filled out some paperwork. It was actually really effortless. And I thought, "Oh, that was easy." Then about 2 weeks later, when they said, "Oh, you're 2 RTR, you're going to be 2 RTR now," I was like, "Oh, sweet." They were like, "So you'll be going to Germany?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Shit." I was like, "Can I transfer back to 1?" And they were like, "Nah, that's it. No, you can't." Like, basically saying I was messing them about. So that's how I remember ending up being 2 RTRs. Basically, because I wasn't a Scouser or a jock, and all the other lads who I was chatting to at the time said, "Oh, we're all 2 RTR." So that's how I ended up there. But I think initially I was cat badge 1 RTR.
What was it like down at Bovington? You getting your hands on tanks at that point?
Oh, it was do you know what, Bovington was class. The the first week, yeah, I thought, what have I let myself in for? Because they literally just hammer you with PT. And I'll be honest with you, yeah, in the military, I didn't like PT at all. It's funny because one of the lads the other day said, when you were in the army, you had a body like a melted welly. And so the first week we were just getting done. We had like log races, stretcher races, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And then after that, it was typical like fat tanky PT. There was like they'd call a parade on like in the morning for you to go outside. They'd have a coach put on to drive down to another camp down the bottom of the hill, which is about 300 or 400 meters away. And for 45 minutes, they just get you to run to a flagpole and back. There's literally no structure to it at all. And so in the end, every week you'd find lads, we'd all be hiding in our lockers, like with a torch, reading our books and stuff, hiding. And then the true corporals would be walking around looking for us because we're all trying to bunk off PT. So basically at Bovington, I ended up just getting fat because you just basically when you're working on the vehicles, the naffy wagon and that, I was just getting pasties and stuff on my face every day. But Bovington itself, though, in respects to the courses, it was really well run. It was decent. I initially done my signals course, which was backhoe at the time, which is a nightmare. And then you do your driving license. So it's like a crash course sort of thing. They bang you on it for a week. You just drive around all day around Weymouth and Bournemouth, just leching at birds on the beach. And then you go on to either your driving and maintenance course, which I'd say about 80-90% of people get put as a driver first, and then the odd random gets sent to Lulworth to do gunnery. But I got picked to do like everyone else, so I was on the driving and maintenance course, and then you basically learn the basic maintenance of the tank, and then there's a chance to how to service it, maintain it, and then obviously how to crew the vehicle as well. But literally when I joined, I had zero knowledge of tooling or anything mechanical, so I had no background. But they teach you, it's like it was a well-run course, because like from the beginning to the end, you start from nothing, and then by the end you're pretty competent. But yeah, we did have one incident. Like, I remember one incident down there though. We had one of the vehicles had come back from Telek, and it was all desert coloured. It was one of the Charlie 2s, and then one of the instructors was opening up the side panels on the turret where it's like they've got the NBC kit and stuff. And they found an RPG had been hidden in there. Someone obviously had tried to smuggle it back to the UK. And then they had to shut the tank part down. Obviously, they brought 80 down and that. Because there was a bit of that, I heard a bit of that was going on, like weapons are being hidden let's say, in tins of grease or in compartments on vehicles. So yeah, that was a bit of a mad one.
So how much are you learning to do on the tank then? Like, what are the kind of responsibilities that you've got to have in terms of maintenance?
So initially, it's just basic like operation, like how the vehicle works. So it's like first parade vehicles, first parade the vehicle, check the levels, all that sort of stuff. Basic maintenance, how to change fan belts, track maintenance, track bashing. Um, and then obviously you do learn about how the tank actually works itself, but it's not so in depth because when you get to your unit, they've got more in depth, depending whether you specialize in driving and being a driver or if you go gunnery. They've got like a mech course, which is like a more in depth course, which I ended up doing later on. But so basically, it's basically the running of the vehicle and how to maintain it and keep it going, basically. Um, so you do like the initial like maintenance phase, and then you get to go do the driving phase once you pop because you have to do your driving license first, and then when you've done that, you can do your track vehicle license, which I can't remember what letter it is, but you do your track vehicle license. So you drive around the all-weather circuit at Bovington, you go over the knife edge. It's basically teaching you how to drive cross country, and then obviously, and you do like a road driving phase. But these tanks they're not like the Challenger 2s you're used to seeing with the turret on. They've basically got like it's a Challenger 2 hull with like a glass dome on top where the rest of the crew sit who are training as well and the instructor. And then you do like the road driving phase, which is just basically driving the Challies on the road, which is quite funny to be fair, because you see all the cars driving down there, basically the drivers shitting themselves. But you're just basically just driving past Monkey World all day, which is which is near Bovington. We had one little incident on an evening once. We were doing night driving, and we were just driving down the road, and this car was just obviously veering towards us. He's obviously fallen asleep at the wheel. There's country roads down there, and it basically hit our tank. If he was, I'd say, half a foot more inside, we would have just gone straight over him. But he just spun out, smashed his car up, and he was like, "What did I hit?" And we were like, "A dog." And he started laughing. And he literally saw a Chatty too there. He was like, "What the?" He was lucky, to be fair. So you do your driving phase, and then once you've done that, you did like a final exercise, which is like just a weak exercise, like dismount. I think it's just to mess you about a bit and just get you ready, and then basically just mark time before you go to your unit. You do the get all your signatures and all that sort of stuff, and then you get your sort of start date for when you get to your regiment.
So how many hours would you say you'd been driving cars before you were driving tanks?
I wouldn't say any more than 5, 5 or 6. Like at most,
And you're 16?
or 16. Yeah, I'd probably do like an. I've never driven a car before in my life. It was probably you'd probably get an hour and a half each a day, so maybe a little bit more. So it'd be like 3 squished in the back, 1 in the front, and you just basically just take it in turns to drive. And then literally, I think I started on the Monday, and on the Friday I was at the test centre in Weymouth, and then had my driving test. I was like, no, I was happy because obviously you get your driving license for free. And I was literally I was like 16 and a half, and I was just got my driving license. So, but before you get let loose into a tank, like literally, I'd had barely any driving experience. But believe it or not, a tank is an absolute doddle to drive. It's automatic. It's the big brake pedal in the middle. There's an accelerator, and then pull left to go left, pull right to go right. That is lit because you got sticks.
Just to explain that you've got levers.
So you got sticks in the cab. Literally pull left if you go forward, pull left to go left, pull right to go right, and if you reverse, it's obviously the opposite way around. It is like you could probably the starting up sequence is obviously that's quite long winded to be fair, but if the tank was running, you could literally jump in it now. I guarantee you, and you could drive somewhere, and you'd be absolutely fine.
And it's a jet engine in a tank.
It's like a Rolls Royce, big diesel engine. To be honest, they are pretty quick. I can't remember the weight of the tank when it was battle loaded, but they're quick. They are pretty quick for the size of them. I think it's about 50k cross country.
Just gonna. So, no, I thought I'd do one of those Joe Rogan check that out, Jamie, and instead I've come up with an oil platform in the North Sea. So I don't think that's my thought. All right, we'll leave that one. So when you done all this driving, then, mate, are you straight to your regiment from there?
I think I had a couple of weeks leave. Then yeah, basically you get given your details to fly out to Germany. I think we flew from Bryce to Hanover Airport. I was there with two other lads from my unit, so it wasn't just me. Remember, yeah, flying out to Germany. It was like December, pitch black when we got there. They sent a coach for us. There was literally three of us on it, and they just dumped us at the camp gates. There was some, were they civvy guards? Yeah, it might have been like civvy contractor guy on the gate. I said, basically, we just rocked up. I was like, we're starting today, and he's like sent us down to the guard room. They, typical Scottish military fashion, they didn't have a clue that we were coming, and they basically put us in the cells for the night because obviously they didn't have any rooms for us. So we were in the cells for the night and had to wait for the morning to obviously the squadrons to parade and then go and find out what was going on. But yeah, we were based in Fallinbostel, so we were in between the Scotch Dragoon Guards, which are another tank regiment, and at the time it was the Black Watch on the other side of the road. So we were like an English regiment stuck in between two Scottish regiments who used to scrap every weekend on how. But the Black Watch ended up changing to the Highland. I think it was the Highlanders. So yeah, we were based in, I can't remember the name of the barracks now. It was quite a while ago. But yeah, we basically had to wait for the morning, parade to our squadron that we'd been sent to, and then find out what was going on from there.
Yeah, that Fallinbostel used to be a prisoner of war camp in the Second World
War. Yeah, it's crazy because the actual camp we were based on used to be the SS Panzer headquarters.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like there's so much history there. Just down the road, you've got Bergen-Belsen, and just outside the back gates of the camp, there was a bigger building called the Union Building, and it's where they used to hose the carts down with all the Jews and that on it. And they used to hose it down there and then send it on to Belsen. But there's so much history there. It's crazy. And I was always a bit of a history nut for like all the World War II stuff. So when I was there, I was loving finding all this sort of stuff out. But initially I was like, oh, I didn't really want to go to Germany, but it was hands down the best thing I ever done. Like if you never got to go to Germany, you really did miss out.
Why was that?
It's class. Like the location where you are, like on the weekend, literally as soon as you knock off on a Friday, when you're back in the UK, when we're in Tidworth, knock off on Friday, everyone's bomb bursts out the gates, are going home. Like no one's hanging around with each other, no one's doing nothing. When you finish, obviously you do like Reggie PT on a Friday, 12 o'clock, everyone has to go down the squadron bar because we all had our own bars underneath our accommodation block, and they were basically funded by squadron funds, and you had to go for at least a couple of beers, and like everyone would be down there, and then obviously we'd bomb burst out. Like we'd go to we had Hanover down the road, we have Hamburg the other way, we had Bremen, and then if you wanted to jump in the car a little bit longer, you could be in Amsterdam. So it was just a perfect location for a young lad to basically enjoy yourself on the weekend, so to speak.
Yeah. So you didn't think much of the Ram in Tidworth?
Nah, you know what? I was only in Tidworth a little while because after Telic 10, I was like doing my final 6 months, back in camp sort of thing, and then I can't get in trouble for it now, but basically I was just doing one and then tipping up on parade on Monday and then disappearing again.
All right, mate. So what was your reception like when you got put into a squadron and like a troop and stuff? How were you treated?
Initially, no one would talk to you, no one, and because bearing in mind the regiment had just got back from Telic 1, so most of the lads had done the invasion, and they'd all got a good tour under their belt, so to speak. So when we rocked up, I remember them calling us, and this isn't a racial term, they called us nigs, and I was like, what the fuck does that mean? It was like obviously new in greens or like a red ass or a crow, whatever, and no one would talk to you unless it was about work, like they'd make you do jobs and stuff. And then initially you get your initiation. Basically, you get dragged out your room on a random Friday night and dragged down the squadron bar and made to drink all sorts of concoctions. you end up drinking like pints of piss and all that sort of shit. Basically, you're shaving your eyebrows off, all that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, if this is rite of passage, gives a pint of piss, and I'll drink it. But even after that, it was weird. Like they more lads would chat to you a bit, but no one sort of like the older sort of lads never really, they didn't really sort of accept you in yet. So that normally lasts for about a year, you know. And I noticed that progressively getting less and less as time went on when I was in the military. Like lads became more like didn't really do that anymore. But to be honest, it wasn't that bad. I wouldn't class it as bullying or nothing. It was just literally you basically just had to get your name about and sort of get amongst it, and then it just sort of gets easier and easier at the time. That's the reason why, to be honest with you, my first tour I done Optelic 7. The Scots Dragoon Guards were short of a multiple of lads, and then when I heard that they needed a multiple, they asked for volunteers, and I thought, right, there's my in. So I thought, if I volunteer for this tour and I come back from that, then you'd hope your name holds a little bit more weight, like you're not just like a little sprog. So that was my thinking behind it anyway. But me and my two mates, we were initially put in a squadron called Cyclops because they're named after ships or something in 2RCR. But then after we literally turned up to regiment and we were there for 2 weeks, and then we went on Christmas leave again. So then back home, and then we were put into a different squadron, which I remained in for the whole time I was in the Tank Regiment. So we settled there, which was
that?
Badger.
So there's one on the, you notice the time kind of shortening between how long it took new blokes to integrate. Did that kind of coincide? Do you think it was like tempo of ops, or maybe like, was it because obviously the army eventually moved, the Germany thing stopped being such a thing? Do you think that was part of it, or what do you reckon was kind of the reasoning behind it?
To be honest with you, I feel like everyone likes to say when they were in it was hard and all that sort of stuff, but I genuinely feel like, say with like the Intaker lads I turned up with, we were less of the mentality of like, oh, let's give this guy shit time for a year. I think we just went, so it was a bit more of a, if he's a good lad, he's a good lad. Like, you don't have to make him wait for a year to like before you can hang around or chat to him. And if they're a div, you just don't chat to them. But I feel like when I first got to my first squadron, they were almost trying to like encourage that behaviour. It was almost like, nah, we had it shit for a year, so you're having it shit for a year. And I'll be honest, I was just sort of like, I didn't see that with the sort of like lads that came through at my time. But I'm sure it still goes. I'm sure it carried on in other squadrons. But our particular squadron was class. Like we all got on. We had obviously lads had the odd disagreement and scraps and stuff, but it's all put to bed after you've had a punch up. It's done. But it definitely lessened like the longer I was in. Like you didn't really see it happen anymore. But I don't know if it was the tour thing as well, because there was quite a big lull between the lads who went on the initial Optelic. There was quite a big gap before people went anywhere else, because there was only 14 of us that went on Telic 7 from our regiment, and then the next tour, I think some lads went to Kosovo to do some sneaky beaky like photo stuff. It was called India Company, and they went to Kosovo. That was a small group of lads. And then after that, it was Telic 10. So it was literally the gap between the initial one to Telic 10 from what I saw. So there was a big gap there of lads not really going anywhere. And we didn't, it's weird because I don't really remember Afghan going on at the time, because did that kick off in 2001, was it?
2000. Well, it did, but really for most of us, it was 2006 when it went 3-power battle group.
Yeah, I genuinely, when I was in, I don't remember hearing about Afghan at all.
Yeah, I think it was basically like they had, I think there was like a company in Kabul and that kind of thing going on. But generally speaking, I think it was after like 2006, Afghan became a big deal though. I mean, like I said, we weren't, but it just, I agree, mate. It just didn't seem to be a thing at all until 2006, and then it seemed to just take over then and be, the main thing there.
Yeah.
So Telic 7 then. What did you do on that? Was it Challenger based or what?
Nah, so we were basically backfilling Scots Dragoon Guards, and it's a dismounted role. So we were basically did all our pre-deployment training, sort of infantry stuff. It was like we're doing helicopter VCPs, Eagle VCPs, they called them. We're doing all that sort of stuff, the riot training, all that sort of thing. And basically, we were on Land Rovers, like unarmored Land Rovers. So GS, like literally, we had the metal caging on it and a bit of scrim, and then we had a couple of snatches as well. So we were basically, basically a dismounted role. And
As
we were based.
so, sorry, mate.
Go on, mate. Yeah.
So I was going to say Scots Dragoon Guards. Then that would be they'd usually have challenges, right? But they're just doing they're just asked to do a different role.
Yeah, both of us were tank regiments. I think because the role we actually did when we were on Telic 7 was a bit of a hybrid role, really. So we were, I'd say there was a month rotation. 3 weeks you'd be dismounted on the ground, and then 1 week you'd do like standby QRF in Shiba on the Chalice. So we'd always provide a crew for I think it was a trooper tank, so 4 tanks, and they were permanently based at Shiba Logistics Base, the 4 Charlie 2s. So you do like a rotation. You do 3 weeks of like patrols, and then 1 week of like QRF for the Chalies. And the whole time I was on Telic 7, I got crashed out once, and I basically sat on a junction watching a mosque, and that was it. And nothing happened, challenger wise. But the dismounted stuff was a lot more interesting because we were Basra Rural South. We're down in a place called Qazar, which is a port. So we were doing patrols along the Kuwaiti border, the Iranian border, and then we'd go into like towns like Azabaya and Saf. I don't know if you've heard of it, a place called Safwan, where there's a massive American base over the border, Camp Navstar it was called. Literally near our camp as well, we had Camp Booker, which was a prisoner of war camp where ISIS was born. So that was literally a stone's throw from where our camp was. So they had a big American prison there.
So when you were out on these jobs, what was the kind of the threats you were facing?
IEDs really. That tour was, in my opinion, it was a perfect tour for a young lad to learn, because kinetically wise, didn't really get shot at all. There was a couple of incidents, and then it was just about VB IEDs and actual IEDs. You'd obviously get your O group every morning, and you get the intel sort of from like what cars to look out for, and it was quite good, to be honest with you. It was like it really helped you like build up like your soldering skills. You know, you're looking out for number plates, or you're doing vehicle checkpoints and searches, and you're doing patrols through towns. I really enjoyed it, and it wasn't so full on, which would put you off doing another one, if you know what I mean.
Did you get any mortars, rockets, or anything like that?
We had a few incidents. There was in a place called Safwan. There was a IED factory there, and the Iraqi army. We were actually on QRF at the time, and the Iraqi army had basically done a knock on this house to go and question these people who obviously weren't local. They come from Basra. They come out of Basra to there because they're a little quieter. They obviously didn't realise they'd stumbled across an IED factory. These blokes inside basically just let rip out the windows at the Iraqi army, and they had a massive firefight. They crashed us out. It's quite funny really, because we were so unprepared. We were like jumped on the wagons, and we were waiting for one of the lads to bring a Jimpy, and we literally only had a vehicle mounted Jimpy. So bearing in mind we were on a Land Rover, he ran out onto the vehicle with a Jimpy with no butt, because you don't have the butt on a bit. So it's like, how are you supposed to fire that? We ended up going to this place, and what had happened is the guys inside this IED factory had run out of ammunition. They surrendered, and then the Iraqi army just executed them. Literally, I couldn't believe. We literally rocked up. I was 19 years old, and there were just like 6 geezers with their heads like split. It was horrible. But yeah, they just basically executed these guys, and then that was probably one major incident that stuck out for me. And another one, we lost one lad, a guy called Gordon Pritchard. He was I think he was 100th soldier to be killed in Iraq, and he was killed by an IED, which was a tough one to take, because I don't know about the other lads, but I know certainly of an armour, we thought the Iraqi army or the Iraqi police were involved in that. So basically, as you come out of the port in Gaza, there's only two ways you can go. You can go left or you can go right. That is it. You can't take a random route cross country. Um, we came out of the port, swung a right because we were on a water ration run. So every couple of weeks we'd have to take these big Bowsers to Q8 to fill up with water and supplies and stuff. So they knew we had to go. And as we come out of the camp gates, I remember seeing the Iraqi police were like laughing. They were sort of like laughing and joking. You know, when something feels off. And then literally as he went around the corner, there was ID blast and hit the front vehicle, killed the commander straight away. And the Iraqi army, I'm sure they started shooting at us. I don't know if they shot at us or shot in the air, but yeah, there definitely wasn't, something wasn't right there. Like, there was definitely collusion. There's no way they didn't know that was there because it was literally 50 meters from their checkpoint. So that put a sour taste in our mouths because these are the guys we've been trying to help as well.
Was anyone else injured?
Yeah, I think the driver broke a few broken bones. Like, he was very lucky because literally it was an EFP IED. So when I see the explosion, obviously I saw a black thing about the size of a basketball, and it come flying out and straight through the driver's cab, went straight past the driver, and hit Pritch, who was the commander at the time. And then I think the lads in the back were pretty like battered up, but it was nothing. I don't think it was too serious, but yeah, you remember hearing them like screaming on the radio and that. Like, it sounded bad, and obviously Pritch was killed, unfortunately. But that was the only fatality we had on that tour. The rest of it was pretty. It was like I think we had one rocket attack. It was nearby. They were trying to rocket the prison. And then, do you remember when I think it was a Norwegian paper done a cartoon of Mohammed or something? It wasn't the Charlie Hebdo one. It wasn't that French one. It was I think someone from a Nordic country done a newspaper article about Mohammed. Yeah, when that happened, it was literally, I was on stag one night in a Sanger, and literally the town erupted. It was just nearby. It was just everyone, there's AKs firing everywhere, and it was mental. I think they were just doing, because obviously they heard the news about this, and then they just wanted to take it out on Eddie Westerner, really.
Yeah, so that was a Danish newspaper reprinted a Norwegian. So yeah, a new Norwegian newspaper reproduced controversial Danish cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. I was in September 2005.
Yeah, that would have aligned at the time we were out there. So yeah, that was the only other thing that really stood out in my mind was that. Yeah, that just erupted. That was the only sort of like kickoff we had from that town as well. Like, it was quite passive down there. Throughout the tour, we would go to Basra Palace a bit. We got shot at from the Iranian border when we went down to this camp. It was a nightmare to get there. You remember that video that you probably see? It's gone viral, that Amarillo video when the lads are dancing around the camp.
Oh
Yeah, it's down in a place called Al-Four. It's just down the Al-Four Peninsula, and it was a slog to get down there. So we had to drive through where the Iraq-Iran war had happened. So you'd see loads of bombed out tanks, loads of old mines, and then you'd have the Iranians. We had some pot shots coming from over the border, but obviously it wasn't accurate, and we weren't going to fire back. But yeah, other than that, we had a couple of prisoners escape from that prison, Camp Booker. They done the bunk over the Kuwaiti border. But that was a really interesting camp, to be fair. Like, we were allowed, the Americans were quite receptive of us. They let us in there and have like a tour of the camp. So this is where wherever they'd arrest these guys from Baghdad or Fallujah, all these places, they'd all basically come down south and they'd put them in this one place. And I've seen documentaries recently that said that is basically the birthplace of ISIS, because they put all these guys together, and yeah, then obviously they can share their ideas, and that's where something was born.
Probably not the best idea, that was it.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know why you would you'd separate them, wouldn't you?
No, or do what the Iraqis did to the ones at the ID factory.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, there's buildings. So all together, mate, like when you were in Iraq at the time there,
Yeah.
What were you kind of, because obviously you went back, and we'll talk about the next tour you did, but when you were there at the time, what was your kind of feeling on the ground? Was it like things were on the up there? Could you see that could you see how things were going to turn out?
Definitely. I'm glad you reminded me actually, because when we were out there, it was the first time they held the elections in Iraq, actual public elections. So we were heavily involved in like guarding the police stations, the polling stations and stuff. And I know it's a bit naive, but I was 19 at the time, and I thought if I go out there and I do my job properly, you might be able to make a bit of a difference and make someone's life a bit better. And it sounds corny, but I genuinely believed it. So every time I went out there, you hear these people say, "Oh, British soldiers are murderers," or the Americans. I can't speak for the Americans, but I know hand on heart that all the lads that I worked with, I'd done nothing to be ashamed of myself. So I was very proud of like what we did, and I could definitely see what we were doing was beneficial. We were doing all the hearts and minds stuff at schools. Bearing in mind, you get the odd rock chucked at you, but they're kids. I'd throw rocks at soldiers as well if I did that. And the reception, in my opinion, it wasn't that hostile compared to like other places. And I think it purely goes on what region you're in as well. Because we were in rural south, there wasn't that many targets for anyone to really aim at. So I feel like they weren't getting as much activity down there. So the people, we weren't really bothering them that much. We were just sort of patrolling and just almost like just a presence, really. But yeah, I did. It did put my back up a bit because when I came home from R&R, I was up Camden in North London, and I came out the station. They had a big table there, like protesting. They had these pictures of, like in Iraq and stuff, and they were like, "British soldiers are murderers." And I remember just losing my shit. I basically just ripped all the posters off the thing. I basically said to him, like, "You lot don't know what you're talking about," because they're just like little divs who they've never been anywhere. They're armchair warriors. And they're speaking in this voice of authority like they actually know. And then my reality was, we were there, and it was definitely not what they were saying. So it did put my back up, especially after one of the lads got killed as well. I was like, you have no idea. But as I'm older and older now, and I've seen things for what they are, there might have been some truth in that.
Yeah, on the macro scale kind of thing, like.
Yeah. Yeah, but at the time, I genuinely believed in what we were doing. I wasn't into all the politics sort of stuff side of it. I just got told to go there, and I'm going there.
So when you left, then,
Yeah,
did you expect to go back?
no, I didn't. So I knew that it could go back at some point, but I didn't think it'd happen as quick as it did.
So what was the next tour for you there?
Just tell it 10. So
That would be 2007.
yeah, correct. Yeah, I think. Did you say you were on Tell It 10 as well?
I was, yeah, at the out the Cobb with maneuver sport battle group.
Yeah. So came back from Telic 7, and then had a bit of pottle leave. There wasn't such thing as like the decompression like Cyprus stuff then. It was just straight back to Germany, go on the piss, and then go on leave. We came back, and then we got put on a Medman in Canada, which was a couple of months sort of exercise, which is unbelievable. I don't know if you ever got to do them, but they were unbelievable. And then literally when we came back from Canada, they're like, "Oh, right," because we were told if you go on tour, you're going to get at least a year sort of in camp sort of thing. And as soon as we got back from Canada, they were like, "Right, pre-deployment training, we're going back to Iraq." And I was like, "What?" I literally, typical fashion, I'd found myself a bird at the time. I was like, "No, I'm not going." I was like, "This is taking the piss." But then, obviously, I ended up going. But yeah, I got to admit, I was a bit miffed at how quick it came. I wasn't bothered the fact that I actually had to do it, because tours are way better than camp life, in my opinion. But it was just a bit annoying that it was so fast. I was like, okay. But that obviously turned out to be what happened in the years to come. Like the turnaround for tours were quite quick, weren't they, for the rest of the army? So yeah, I guess that was going to be the new norm.
Can you just talk us through what a Medman is, then, mate?
Yeah, so basically we went to Canada, and they basically practicing like, so it's basically like a massive exercise. So you got a battle group level, like infantry, you got obviously all the armor, you've got even air, you had air, like we did a massive firepower display, which was unbelievable, like artillery, helicopters, a lot. So basically it's just like a big war game, really. So there was a live firing section to the exercise. I think Don't know how long that lasted. And then the rest of the exercise, you have TES kit fitted. So I don't know what you had in the, you had the little vests that beep. And then on the tanks, we'd obviously have like, it's like a massive quasar really. We'd fit all this laser kit onto the vehicles, and then it's basically we just do some big war game really. And it lasts. You're out on the ground. I think you're out on exercise for about 3 or 4 weeks. Luckily, I'd done a summer one, so it was hot. It was nice weather. But in the winter, and if you end up doing a winter med, man, it's I've heard it's not as nice. It's obviously snowing and freezing cold, but yeah, it's basically just brushing up on like your actual skills, and obviously working with the battle group and stuff.
So the ten tour then, mate. What was the role for 2 RTR on that? Were you deploying, because you're Challenger tanks, right? So is it the same kind of thing? And you're taking out a bit of everything?
Nope. So again, I didn't do the role I joined to do. We did a warrior conversion course, and then I was a gunner. I'd done my gunnery course and I'd done my gunner mech in the time between tours. So I'd done quite well at gunnery. So I ended up being a gunner on a warrior. So the Highlanders run a conversion course for us, and then which is obviously we obviously got a basic knowledge of like driving and maintenance, that sort of stuff. So it's a compressed course. It was just basically teaching us how to crew the warriors, because obviously as a driver, the warriors are such a different platform to the Challenger 2. Like when you brake on a warrior, it rocks for about 3 minutes, so the gunner has to wait for the gun to settle. On a Challenger 2, it's literally station control pad, and literally it's all smooth as butter. So we had to almost relearn how to gun. So we re-rolled. We were out on the Warriors, and we were basically with the Irish Guards battle group, and we had dismounts, and we were gearing up to basically have dismounts in the back. And we were initially told we were going to Basra Air Base, so that's where we were initially told we were going. But basically, we done all the pre-deployment training, same as before, but just on Warriors. So you have your range package in Germany, and I think we had to come over to the UK for a bit as well to do a bit of training. But yeah, so we were out there on the Warriors basically.
So who had the Challengers on that? Was it Cyclops squad?
Cyclops. They had the Challenger 2s. They were down near the Danish camp, in the air base. So they're down the bottom end. But they didn't want. They're obviously based out there because they've seen Challenger 2s as escalation, as a warrior is supposed to look friendly. I don't know. It was ridiculous. But
so you had all the other squadrons in Warrior?
just two. I think Cyclops there on Challenger 2, and then just Badger were there on Warriors. I don't think the two other squadrons were deployed. They were still in Germany at the time. It wasn't the whole regiment. We were basically part of a battle group. So
and you were just providing crews, not dismounts or anything?
No, just crews. Yeah, just crewed the vehicles.
So it was Irish. Who's you say in the back?
Irish Guards.
Right. Okay.
So I don't remember what company we had, but they're really decent lads, to be fair.
What part of the COB were you in?
Initially, we were. I can't describe it. I'd say it's quite central in the COB. We had a little camp there. I can't remember the name of it, but basically we went to the COB, and then when we got there, we were told two troops are going to go to Basra Palace, and my troop was picked. I think 2 and 3 troop were picked. My troop was picked to go. I was buzzing because obviously I knew the palace is where it was more. You're going to get to do more. It was more interesting, and the others would stay. The other two troops, would stay in the COB. So the first 2 weeks we were just grafting. We were just up armoring the vehicles. So we were down opposite the Danish camp in some big sandpit, just basically up armoring and putting the extra armor on, because the Warriors came. We had the Warriors without obviously the added armor on there, so we had to fit all the RPG cages and obviously the other armor onto the side of the vehicles.
So what was because obviously you'd gone when you'd been there in 2005. Now you're back in 2007. Could you kind of smell a bit of a change in the air?
Immediately, like we were literally in that period when we were doing up arming the tanks. was coming back from lunch once, walking back down to the tank park, and we had sustained like a big mortar attack. I don't know if you remember, but at the back of the camp, do you remember there's a little prison there? There's a prison right on the wire, just on that other side, and obviously the mortar alarm went off, and I remember seeing I hope the bloke was all right, but the Sanger on the corner took a direct hit from a mortar, and obviously we just laid on the floor like waiting for it to stop. But I immediately knew then, I was like, this is very different from what it was before, because in Telic 7, I think we came under rocket attack maybe twice in 6 or 7 months, and literally we'd been here a night, and like we'd got moved here and mortared already multiple times, because I remember being on the phone home as well on the internet CAF thing, and then I think the Chinese rockets started landing in camp, so we were getting, and you got a pretty quick grasp of that it had changed before even going out the wire.
So what was it when you went down to the palace then? What was the situation there? Oh, actually, can you just kind of explain to people what the palace is and where it is?
So Basra Palace is obviously, I think it was Uday Hussein. We stayed in Uday Hussein's palace, which is one of Saddam's sons, and it was right on the river. Is it the Shat Al Arab? I think it's it's the Shat Al Arab river. So it's just I always get it mixed up, because I know obviously you got the Euphrates over there as well. Is that a spot map? Yeah.
Yeah, I got the spot map, mate. Hang on. I'm pretty sure it's let's check here. It is the Shat Al Arab. Yeah. Yeah, of course, because the Shat Al Arab hotel was up on the top.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a camp. Obviously, you obviously know yourself, but it's a camp right by the Shat Al Arab River. But you're really in Basra. You know, like when they say like the airbase is Basra Air Base, it's it's kind of like Gatwick. They say London Gatwick. It ain't London, but you're away from you're away from London, but it's nearby. But yeah, obviously, it was I was slyly quite happy that I was going there, because I thought it's going to be way more interesting than what the other lads are doing. So once the vehicles were up armored, we had a big convoy move into Basra, which was that really set the tone just from that journey in, like just the initial journey into Basra Palace itself.
Why kick off?
Yeah. So obviously we did most of the moves at night, then the night move into there, and literally as you come over there's a few bridges going over a river as you come up to Basra, and literally as soon as we came over the bridge, you just see all these, through the thermal sites, you'd see all these heads popping up off the roofs. It's normal in Iraq, obviously, for them to sleep on the roof because it's hot. It was a summer tour, but they were looking a little too hard, if you know what I mean. And so I was thinking, right, obviously, it's obviously going to go off here, and then crept into the city itself, like edging forward, and then obviously it just all went off. Like you just got engaged from like multiple positions, and it's weird because in a tank, in a warrior, small arms that do not bother you whatsoever. You're literally sitting there and having a chat, like I'm having a chat with you now. I'd chat to my commander like this, and you'd hear all the rounds pinging off the side. You wouldn't be bothered. It's just when you hear the RPGs like whoosh over the top, because they had different RPGs which could penetrate armor and stuff. But so the initial journey in was very busy, should we say. We basically had to.
So were you
paddle down? Yeah, well, no, not really. We were just in contact the whole way through, so it was. I can't really remember timings, but it was definitely a good few hours. We were just sort of moving forward, and then holding junctions, and then people coming through. But yeah, it was definitely. That's how it started. How it meant to go on, you know. It was like it carried on like that throughout the tour, really. Mainly because obviously we do our moves at the nighttime most of the time, but it was a weekly thing because obviously you'd have your resupplies into the city, and we'd have to come out and then sit on a junction, and basically just to sit in target, and you're just waiting to get shot at, basically protecting a V pit, a vulnerable point, and then waiting for the convoy to come through. So
Uzis, wasn't it?
That's I haven't heard that in a long time. And like I'm terrible with things like that. You seem to forget the little details, but obviously, yeah, we used to do. Obviously, we'd do them as well. But yeah, I knew. Like I said, when you asked, I knew straight away it was a very different tour. It was completely different.
So, like you said, the Warriors, they're pretty good with small arms RPGs.
Yeah.
So, biggest threat was like I should explain like the EFPs, what an EFP is, as opposed to like a normal, like, your kind of traditional IEDs.
Yeah.
So, can you just talk people through EFPs and why they're so dangerous for armor?
So EFPs, we like I said before, we saw them on Telex 7. So obviously, initially with IEDs, I don't know what they were using, but a lot of the times it was 107mm Chinese rockets. They'd sort of like bury them and then put like some det on it, and they'd wait there, and basically it's just a large explosion. They put ball bearings on it and stuff like that. But the EFP, it was a shaped charge. So basically, the only way I could describe it is like a large bean can. Imagine a large bean can. You'd pack it with all sorts of shit. It'd be like nuts, bolts, whatever, with molten into a ball. And then they'd put like a sheet of metal almost concaved on the inside of the bean can, which I'm assuming that's what shapes it. So obviously they're a lot more effective on armor than say just a normal rocket exploding at the side of the road, because it would be a shaped charge and it would be the impact of the IED itself would be more concentrated and it would penetrate armor. And sometimes they'd put them in daisy chain formation, so you'd have multiple IEDs sometimes. Unfortunately, that's how one of our lads he got hit and passed away from one of the IEDs like that. But yeah, basically it's a shaped charge. It's a lot more effective on armor than just say a normal explosion.
I think there was a Challenger penetrated by one. Was that Tele 10 or was that Tele?
That was Take 9. That was my mate Steve Shine. So that was a bit different. So what they'd done is they'd melted a hole in the tarmac and put the explosives in the tarmacked over it, and it went off under the driver's cab. It penetrated the vehicle, but Steve lost his leg. But the vehicle itself we could still operate. So it wasn't just the vehicle wasn't destroyed. It was damaged. So, but yeah, obviously the bottom of the tanks are quite flat, aren't they? I know with the Mastiffs and stuff like that, they brought on the design to angle the hull of the vehicle. So I think that obviously helps with like underbelly IEDs.
So did that one actually get in? Like, if you know what I mean, did that penetrate the armor? Or it was more that the blast threw him up, kind of.
Well, there's no actual additional armor you can put on underneath. It's just flat metal. So it did penetrate. It went through and it took Steve's leg off. But in terms of Challenger 2, Challenger 2 has never been. I don't think it's ever been like penetrated from the side. I've seen a IED go off with a Challenger 2 and it literally just bounced off it. But
did you used to have the Challengers drive out in front of the Warriors? Is there like leading the?
No, so we were out on a op one evening near the Sheer Flats. You know the Sheer, you probably know the Sheer Flats. Pretty dodgy part of Basra, to be fair. I was obviously in the Warrior. There was I was lead vehicle, and then there was a Challenger 2 behind me. I saw something funny on my sights, a thermal image on a sort of thermal I could see something warm basically on the side of the road at night time. Spoke to my commander, said like, look, what do you think of that? He wasn't too concerned about it. So we're like, okay, did the usual, tense your arse cheeks together when you go past it. Nothing happened. And the Challenger 2 behind went past it, bang. So obviously they were waiting for, they were trying to obviously go for the spectacular, try to take up the Chally. Someone was obviously watching and they remotely detonated it and it just bounced off the side. But if that hit the Warrior, I don't think it would have ended as nicely. But you would think what he said, you'd think you'd send the Challies first.
Yeah. So talk us through how important the thermal sights were for you.
They're really good, to be fair. Massively important, because obviously at night time, you're not going to see nothing through a normal sight. The Challenger 2's obviously famous, like, way better than what the Warrior was. The Warrior one was a little bit temperamental, but it still was good enough to do the job. But yeah, I feel like it definitely gave us sort of an advantage over the people we were like fighting with, the Jaysh al-Mahdi, or Iranians, who knows. But I definitely feel like it gave us a bit more of an advantage over them. But like I said, they were a little bit the Warriors ones are a little bit temperamental, because we've had IEDs go off before. My thermal sight knocked my thermal sight out for about half an hour. So basically you're blind. But yeah, it definitely helped. But I would have preferred to be in a Challenger 2, to be honest, because they're way more advanced, and it's because I think, I don't know when the Warriors came out, like 60s or 70s or something.
Oh, it's proper old Cold War stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
Everything's bolted on rather than an initial design, and then you're always going to get
because like the gunnery, like I said, it's completely different because it's all hand control. You could traverse left or right on power on batteries, but you had to elevate and depress by hand. It was literally like, imagine how you'd see in World War II. You'd see him like doing that sort of thing. But on the Challenger 2, it's a PlayStation control pad, and you just track like that. And if you see a target, you can press this button called aided lay. Press that, and then it just follows the target itself. Yeah, it was
thermal sight. You could pick out what looked like IEDs and that kind of thing.
not, I wouldn't say it's clear. Like it wasn't like open and shut, but it definitely gave you a better indicator. Like you can see, like, sometimes you could see a heat signature and it was an IED. So they definitely saved lives, in my opinion. Yeah, so they definitely did help, but obviously sometimes you just can't pick them up, can you? They're so well hidden. It's just luck of the draw, really, and you just got to be observant, I guess. But that's the main thing, like you said, when you're on patrol in the evening. That is what you're scanning for. You're looking for the heat signatures at the side of the road, and then obviously if you get contacted, then you can traverse off and scan for targets in depth or whatever. You can scan for people like running around.
What was the first time you put rounds down there?
First time I put rounds down was, we went out on an op one day, and it was, I don't know what it was actually for. We were going to a town just outside of Basra. It was like the suburbs of Basra. We got there, and it's just a really weird feeling because, the atmosphere, it's normally busy. It was dead. And we were driving down this road, and I just remember this ambulance coming flying past us, and the back doors were open. There were two armed guys in the back, and there was a geezer. He was clearly dead. He was laying on the floor, and like you could see the top of his head swinging. I don't know what had happened. That flew past us, and everyone was sort of like, "What's going on here?" So then it was deemed that we'll get out of here, because it was definitely something wasn't right. So we basically came back the way we came. I was lead vehicle, and then it all kicked off at the back of the convoy. There's videos of it on YouTube, actually. But we were getting small arms, RPGs, and then we were driving down the road, and I saw this kid run out the side of this alley, and he put something behind a lamppost. It was like a box, and then he ran straight. It was too. I couldn't have shot him in time. There's no way. So I said to the boss, like, stop. Like, we had to stop the vehicle. I said, look, I think it's an ID behind that lamppost. Like, can I deny it? Because we used to be allowed to sometimes shoot them and then blow the IED up instead of calling ATO out or anyone like that. But we had to put it up to higher, and they said no. The only other road that we could go down, no cars were going down there. They were basically driving up and turning around and bugging out. And I was like, I do not want to go down there. And then obviously it was deemed in their infinite wisdom that we're going down there. And also, I saw one IED in the side of the road. I put a 30 mil through it, missed. And then you had to adjust, and then the second shot I hit it, that denied that ID, and then it was just small arms all the way down then, really. But never, you get that question from all civvies all the time, like, did you get anyone? And you never really know, do you? Because like, I'm not going to get out the vehicle and go and check. But yeah, like, I lost count of how many coax rounds I fired, like chain gun I fired, and 30 mil fired that on a few other occasions as well, by the sheer flats. But that was the first time I got like rounds down, because on my first tour, the whole tour didn't fire a single round. Even though we had like the IED attack and stuff, never fired my rifle, and apart from when I was on the range. So that was the first time I ever sort of got rounds down. It wasn't that exciting, but it was kind of cool thinking to myself, I've actually managed to get to do my job now properly. But it does make you think. I always think to myself, them 30 mil rounds, like, where do they end up? Because they probably went through about 30 houses after it. But yeah, it was never like I never had any sort of like, you know, you think, oh, I'm going to get that clear cut shot. Guy's going to pop out, drop to his knee, and you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to get him. Never actually got to do. That never actually happened to me, but it did happen to a few other blokes. Like one of my mates, he shot. There's a lot of public order out there at the time, you probably remember, and he was a driver and he shot someone with a pistol out of his driver's cab. It got that bad. But that never happened to me because obviously I'm up in the turret, I'm out of the way. So for me, it was mainly IED threats, and then obviously you'd get in small arms contacts and stuff. But you never really know, do you? Like why? I never got to go find out. I'm not going to get out and then have a look. But
well, I think people misunderstand as well, because when you think of Iraq, I think a lot of people think desert, and like you said, it's like a city. You know, Basra city is a fucking city. Like there's buildings everywhere, there's rooftops everywhere, windows everywhere. You know, and then noise distorts. You know, it's like it's not this like movie picture that people think it is with just guys standing in an alleyway. It's just haven't got a clue where stuff was coming from. We should say as well, mate, like explain to people what rules of engagement you were on at this time.
I think it was Card Alpha. Can't remember, but basically it was very strict initially. Obviously, you weren't allowed to fire unless fired upon. But then it did change throughout the tour. You were allowed to shoot dickers because we never used to be allowed to shoot at them. Because obviously we'd see guys on the phone all the time on the bridges. They'd be watching the convoys coming in, or they'd be out the window on the phone, and we would get hit literally down the end of the road. Like it was so obvious. We'd have a car following those guys on the phone, and then we'd get attacked like 20 minutes later. And then it came into effect. I think it was more like towards halfway through the tour. They were like, "Look, you are allowed to fire at dickers now." So I never had to do it, but I'm sure it would have deterred them from doing it so brazenly. But they were literally taking the piss, like they didn't care. They're quite, to be honest, and they are quite ballsy in my opinion when we were there initially. But yeah, a lot, like you say, a lot of the threat was IEDs. We did have quite a fair few contacts, but it was nothing worth writing home about. It was just I felt almost. I don't really talking about contacts now. I almost feel like a bit of a. I can't really talk about them because I'm sat in a tank nice and safe, and then you got the infantry bods going kicking doors down, and there's me sat behind armor, just sort of like playing PlayStation, basically.
Well, talk us through what you were taking the dismounts in the back, what you were taking them out to do then, and why they were kicking down doors, that kind of thing.
So initially they'd done all the training for the strike ops and stuff, where you go into like obviously like houses and stuff and pick up basically the IED makers and sort of the ringleaders. And then as we deployed, I think another infantry battalion took over that role. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it's the rifles. I think it was the rifles took over. Yeah, I think they took over that role. And then we basically had the Irish Guards and the dismounts in the back. So when we were on patrol, they were just don't really know what their role was, to be honest with you. They'd obviously get like, I don't know what their actual tasking was, but obviously we'd get them out and they'd be patrolling the streets and stuff. But I think they were very miffed because they were told that they were going to be doing the door kicking, and they'd done all the pre-deployment training and all that sort of stuff from the Fibula and that for it. And then it got changed pretty late on. So they ended up kind of like not doing what they were trained to do. So I remember them being pretty miffed about that, but it is what it is. I think it was a rifles battle group. So I'm sure they probably just pulled ranking like we're doing that. But we did have some like interesting guys come in the back. We had a couple of American like intelligence agency guys getting in the back. So we'd have them in the back. We'd have no infantry, and then we'd drive out at night and go on the patrols and stuff. We'd plot up, and they'd literally disappear for 3 or 4 hours and go bug IED factories and stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah, because it's obviously you're not expecting an American to get in the back. These blokes were literally wearing trainers and stuff. It was mad. And then obviously next to our accommodation block, we had like the SF guys as well. So we used to see them cutting about kind of with haircuts like you. Got all the Gucci weapons and that. And obviously, so they were obviously, we knew they were about as well.
So what about the, because obviously that Basra Palace got hammered by mortars and stuff. What was that like living there?
I was mental, mate. Yeah, you know as well as I do, like we were literally getting smashed daily. Like I couldn't even give you an example of how many rockets were fired at us each day. But it was if you didn't get rocketed, I'd say at least 2 or 3 times a day. It was weird. Something was up. Unfortunately, our accommodation. We were in Uday's Palace, which was basically right on the Shat. And they were firing at us from across the river. You'd see the marshlands, which is I think it was Babylon in original times. That's like, it was literally supposed to be like paradise hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but they were basically just mortaring us from over the river and firing Chinese rockets. They were coming through our like through the walls every day. So we'd obviously had to carry cinder blocks up around the walls. Everyone's beds were like lower than the blocks. But yeah, we were just getting absolutely smashed. We used to have a fridge actually out on the balcony, which overlooked the Shat. And every time you opened it, if you let it drop, it'd go, and it'd sound like a mortar when they drop it in the tube. Yeah. So the amount of times that I've lads diving on the floor, it was just some div getting a bottle of water out of the fridge. But yeah, unfortunately, we lost one other guy called Dad Flowers. He was a Remy lad, so they're attached to us. But they're basically like, they're like us, you know, they work with us, they live with us, and he was working on a vehicle down the tank park, and he got killed by a mortar round actually. So yeah, they were very, very effective and very accurate as well. But to be fair, they'd had years to hone their skills and bombing that one part of town, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was relentless.
You weren't able to just hang around outside or anything like that. It was all.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember it, but basically when we used to have to go to Scoff, we'd have to go over that bridge, and there was a little sign on the thing saying run across it, because obviously a sniper would try and shoot you. And you did used to get the odd pot shot, like so we used to have to hard target over the bridge, and then obviously it was just Hesco City then. There was just like little tunnels with basically providing cover. But yeah, literally from beginning to the end of the tour, it was relentless. Like they just didn't stop. But yeah, I guess it passed the time. I guess in the end, it's weird because you end up getting used to it. It's sort of like you're almost not bothered, because it literally becomes part of the norm, doesn't it?
And what are you doing then? Like when you're not out on ops, what's your normal day? What was your normal kind of day like? In fact, just talk us through like what a normal day might be like out there.
In the palace, it'd just be get up in the morning. One of us would have to go over to HQ to sort out an interpreter for normally a night patrol. But if we did do quite a few day patrols as well, but if we had no patrols on, it'd literally just be a case of eat, sleep, a bit of me time, if you know what I mean. And in Uday's Palace, we were lucky enough to have like a gym set up literally in the middle of the hallway. So the accommodations on the second floor, and literally down the bottom, there was basically just a gym there. And that's when obviously I started my little love affair with weights, because I used to have, like I said, in the army, I hated PT. I couldn't stand it. But then I found something that I was actually all right at, lifting some weights and that. So if you weren't training, you'd just be sort of monging it on your bed, watching your little portable DVD players, or yeah, that was about it really. But to be honest with you, there wasn't many days where we had nothing. It was like we were always on the patrol. Sometimes we'd be on back-to-back patrols. We'd be out a lot. But on the rare occasion you did have time to chill, that's just typical sort of like typical stuff you'd do normally. Nothing. We couldn't go outside and play football or anything like that, because obviously the IDF threat. So yeah, it was other than that,
like the maintenance. Sorry, mate.
The maintenance of the vehicles. Did you say?
Yeah, like how did you get that done? Considering that you've got this mortar threat and everything all the time.
So we had like a very small vehicle park, which is right. They put it as close to our accommodation as possible, and they basically put blast walls like a circle. And then we had the vehicles up against the wall, and basically we obviously minimize it as much as we can. We wouldn't put. I think we staggered it, to be honest. We didn't send everyone down there in one time to work on their vehicles. They'd stagger it, so there was less people down the vehicle park. But obviously maintenance needs to be done sometimes, like track bashing and stuff. You have to do it. It was a bit of a funny one, really, because the Warriors you'd get issues with them and stuff. And I remember saying to my driver, I was like, "How come ours has never broken down?" And he's like, "I've never serviced it." I was like, "What?" I was like, "You're taking the." He didn't do oil. He didn't check the oil. Didn't do nothing. He just winged it, which was just stupid, to be honest. But in the end, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because our vehicle didn't break down ever. The only thing that broke was obviously the air conditioning because that breaks straight away. But
Well, on that note, mate, can you just explain to people the kind of conditions, what it was like inside the Warrior?
it was disgusting. It was a summer tour, so obviously you got all your body armor, your helmet, and all that sort of stuff on. I can't remember the temperatures, but it was hot. It was hot. You know yourself. Me being ginger as well is extra treacherous, like with sunburn and that. But yeah, you'd literally get like a cooler. You get your boxes of water out the cooler in the morning, and literally, I'm not joking, an hour later, it's like drinking kettle water. And you'd be out on patrol. I was out for 10 hours, 12, however long, man. And you'd sweat that much, your clothes would be completely drenched. And by the time you get into camp, they're bone dry. They got all these horrible salt marks on them. You could literally, I could take my trousers up and stand them up on their own. It was disgusting. And we had a couple of occasions when lads would go down with heat exhaustion, especially I felt sorry for the lads in the back, like the infantry pods, because you didn't want to have, I think they only had some smaller vehicles called Bulldogs, not us. They could leave the roof. They had like some mortar hatches they could leave open to give them a bit of air. But in the Warrior, it's door closed, and they didn't really open the hatches on the top because obviously the threat of someone just chucking a grenade in, sort of thing, you know. But yeah, it was. I can't speak for the infantry lads in the back. I know for a fact it would have been worse because it would be dusty in there. At least I can stick my head out the top of the turret for a bit. But it was probably the worst conditions I've ever been in, hands down. Because they used to sing and dance. They did sing and dance about it, like, "Oh, we've got aircon for them now. They're aircon." They literally broke within a few weeks, and then they were like, "We can't get spares out to theatre," so it was pointless.
Did you ever see those body armors that they brought out with the fans in them?
No, I never know. We had, I think, Osprey at the time.
Brought out some prototypes that had these like fucking fans on. I mean, they were just the fucking most ridiculous things you've ever seen in your life. It didn't work either. But that was some idea. It was like, oh, that probably someone got paid 10 million to think of sticking a fan on body armor, mate. It didn't fucking work. But
I don't know. Yeah, I never saw that. But in regards to body armor on Telex 7, I don't know if you ever saw it. It came out for a little. I can't remember the name of it. It was.
That's cool.
What the hell was that? We trialed that. You can't even aim your rifle in the prone position. It was ridiculous. Yeah, careful. Yeah, I think that memory's that. Yeah, but yeah, back to what you said.
So on the temperatures, it was about 50s air temperature, and then in the back about 70. It'd get up to in the daytime.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Speaking of daytime ops, did you do that op when you remember when Iraq had won a football game? And there was an op Pusey going on, and there was.
Did they win it on? Did they win that on penalties or something? I think I do. I think I do remember that.
But there was a daytime op Pusey where but it was the same day Iraq had won a football game, and it was just fucking because that was one they had the brigadier was coming out with us with the Warriors and passed out before he got to the that long road that leads out the cop.
Mm-hmm.
He passed out before he got to the end of before he got to the main gate and had to be taken out. It is his bright idea to go in the middle of the day, mate. But yeah, mate. So when you were at the Palace, then were you there when it shut down?
Yeah, we were there when it shut down. We obviously before it shut down. I don't know if you ever did it, but we had to go to the PJOC as well. Did you ever go to the PJCC? That I never actually got to go there, but another part of my troop went, and I know for a fact that was basically just a turkey shoot every night from the grain factory. But yeah, yeah, when they handed the palace over, we obviously were part of that convoy on the way out.
What did you feel like leaving the palace? Oh, so actually, let's just take a second to explain, actually, because we're talking here like two people who kind of know what was going on there. But
Yeah.
can you just explain to people kind of what was happening in Basra at the time in terms of shutting down these locations?
In what sense do you want?
As in, like, like there's kind of, so there was obviously, because when, and, you had, like I said, you had the P-Jock, you had, there was Shuttle Arab, there was the old state building, and they were gradually closing these locations down in the city and pulling all the Brits out. And it was part of a deal that had been made with the Jaish al-Mahdi, who were the main kind of Shia militia, and I think it was Badr Brigade was the other one, wasn't it? Which was the more Iranian, like the Iranian one. And then,
Yeah.
and then the plan was if we left, that they'd stop attacking us. Was the plan?
Yeah. Or
How did you?
with the other camps closing, didn't really feel too much. Didn't really feel too much about it. But obviously, because you'd think, like I'm in Basra Palace, I was just more concerned about what's happening in Basra Palace. But yeah, when we found out, obviously we were pulling out, and on the terms we were pulling out, it was a bitter pill to swallow, man. Because you think like us personally, just my squadron, we lost 3 guys, and I thought, oh, we're just going to give it back. It was a very bitter pill to swallow. I don't think anyone took. I think we would have rather stayed. We would have rather stayed there, to be honest. And then obviously to rub some salt in the wounds, what you said, like there, when we were on the convoy out, I could literally see through the thermal. You could literally see through the thermal sight. You could see the Jaish al-Mahdi armed, the people we've been fighting for 7, or I wouldn't just say 7 months, all in previous telex. The people we've been scrapping with for all that time, and they literally, it almost felt like they were just stood there laughing, like with thumbs up, like a middle finger to us, and just like we were leaving with our tail between our legs. And they tried to make, on the news, it wound me up. They tried to make it look like some glorious, like they put all these big Union Jacks on the Warriors and the Welsh flags, and it tried to look like some sort of like, look, we're pulling out. And no, look, in my opinion, it felt like we'd been done, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. They sold it as a handover, didn't they, rather than a withdrawal? And it was, like I said, I think, I think if you'd asked any of the blokes who were on the ground, it's like, no, we don't want to go.
Yeah, 100%. It felt, and the fact that they'd been having chats with these people and struck a deal about, I know we were just like lowly troopers or whatever, we were out on the ground, just like, we're just numbers to them. But in my opinion, I was like, it would have been nice to give a heads up or kept in the loop. But it was literally just sort of like, oh, we've struck a deal with Brian, no, we've struck this deal with them, we're letting a load of them out of prison, and then we're letting them have Basra back. And I thought, yeah, it just felt like they proper done us over there. And then obviously you find out, like you say, you find out later all the little details of it and stuff. And it was just, yeah, especially when you could see them literally stood there with weapons. I'm like, what, can't we shoot them? And they were like making out that they were protecting our convoy on the way out. Like, we needed protecting. Like, we can leave ourselves. It was sort of like, it was just like they've salted the wounds, but to be honest, I've still got a very bitter taste about it, to be honest about it.
Mate, I forgot that protect him from who?
Yeah, like, it was like they were doing us a favour, like, don't worry, we won't shoot at you. I was like, well, don't worry, we won't blast you up either. It wound me up, because it's like, yeah, who are you protecting us from? What, you? But yeah, they tried to spin it off like that, like, oh, they're doing us a favour, like, oh, cheers. There were still IEDs on the way out anyway. Well, I was like, yeah, you just, I don't know how you feel about it, but yeah, alongside,
I'd string up whoever made that deal, mate. I'd string them up.
Yeah, for a long time, I held that quite personally, because obviously I see the aftermath after one of my best mate was killed out there, and I see the effects obviously it has on the family. It was like, and I know lads, we all know the risks and stuff, and but when I used to socialise with him outside of work as well, because he used to live in Battersea. So I saw the other side of it. I'd see his little sisters. They were only like 6 and 12 at the time, 6 and 14 at the time, and I saw how much it like destroyed his family. And I was like, and these, I don't like to get all political about it, but it's like, I think they're striking all these little deals behind our back and stuff, and then there's no real afterthought about it. And it wound me up. I would have rather, I know it's a double-edged sword, because if you stayed there, more lads would have potentially got killed. But me, as someone who's actually there, like, if you ask me personally, now I would have stayed.
Yeah, I think it's more of the fact that summer for a few months you're asking people to go out every night, IEDs, small arms, everything, and like I don't think people realize as well that the like, because obviously everyone knows about Afghan at that time, but the casualties, right? There was actually more casualties, more deaths in Iraq at that period than there was in Afghan. But like you said, mate, it was like a betrayal by the commanders and then a betrayal by the media, because the media is like, oh yeah, no, don't worry about Iraq. It's all quiet. There's nothing going on there. And it's like, it's like what we fucking on about? It's like, it's like, if you need Challenger tanks to go into a city, it's because it's kicking off. And
Yeah,
I can't really give a
feel
like
peacekeeping talk.
If you got Challenger tanks, mate, well, which are firing the gun.
There's nothing peaceful.
Tanks are just sitting there, they're firing.
Yeah, there's nothing peaceful about Challenger.
On that, you mentioned the release of prisoners as well. Just explain to people about that, like what part of the deal that was.
I don't know obviously the ins and outs of it, but I know for a fact, obviously, like I said, mentioned before, there was a prison outside Basra Palace, not Basra Palace, Basra Air Base, right on the edge on the perimeter fence. They'd made multiple attempts to break them out of there, because I'd see them mortar the fence and mortar the walls, try and get them out. But what I come to learn in after it was that a part of the deal, they released people that would actually capture, not me personally, but other units and stuff, had actually captured on strike ops, people that had actually been found guilty of, like, I don't want to use terrorism, but like, what's the word for it? They've been found basically guilty, banged to rights, making IEDs and hoarding weapons and stuff like that, being involved in that sort of activity. So they were banged to rights and they were literally let go. Like, these people have literally killed people. So that, in my eyes, they're murderers, and they just let them go. It's almost like kind of like an Iraqi Good Friday agreement, but we didn't get anything out of it. They got it all. It's just like, here you go, off you go, you can do your thing. And that is also another kick in the teeth, because you literally, these guys have done whatever X, Y, and Z to certain bit to our lads, and they literally just rode it out for a year or so, and then they're out.
And once they let the final one out, they fired the biggest rocket attack on the base of the entire occupation.
Oh, was that on Tele 10? Was it? Yeah.
I don't think it happened on 10. I think it happened on 11.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Once the last prisoner was out, they were just like, that's it, have some rockets.
Yeah, it does not surprise me, because I'm pretty sure after our sort of didn't the Americans go down there as well? And they were saying it was pretty bad.
Yeah, that Operation Charge of the Night.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anything else from Iraq, mate, that you want to speak about?
Just no, just that there was one of our lads. I thought, I do like to mention the lads as well, because they do need to be remembered. And there was one lad, and so my mate Jay, he unfortunately passed. Another guy, Daz Flowers, he was a Remy lad, and a Corporal Edwards, he was killed by an IED, and it was pretty sneaky how they done it as well. They put an IED RC. Initially, it detonated. He drove there and past obviously the contact point, and then because the equipment that we had was pretty shit as well, so he stood up at the top of the vehicle to check if the guardsmen in the back were all right. And then obviously they got him with a secondary device, what we were talking about before, the EFPs, and he stood up to check the lads in the back were all right. Secondary device went off, and then it killed him straight away. But yeah, it was a very strange tour, because obviously myself, obviously I got out of the army not long after that. People always ask, like, it's weird because everyone wants to know about Afghan, and I get it, because it is interesting. Like, but when I left as well, I was gutted. I was like, because my regiment deployed to Afghan after, and I was like, I felt like I hadn't tested myself, because I'm hearing about what my mates are getting up to, and I'm like, I need to get back in because I've not tested myself now, because they're doing this stuff in Afghan. But I feel like Iraq's kind of like a forgotten sort of a forgotten tour, and it certainly by wasn't no means a cushy tour. It was just very different to obviously the Herricks, you know. So that's yeah. I feel like obviously after the Telex started to wind down, then obviously the news started. It was just all Afghan, which I understand because obviously the fatalities and stuff. But Iraq was kind of just sort of like, oh, whatever, push that to the side. Let's forget about that. So that was a bit of like a sore one to take because you almost feel a bit like it's forgotten about, you know.
Yeah, not even like 20 years later, like just instantly.
Yeah, gone. It's sort of like, oh, did that even happen? But I don't know how you felt about it, but that's how I personally felt. And it probably it didn't make it any easier, the fact that I'd left the army as well. So like my transition out of the army was quite quick. And I was sort of like, oh, 6 months, 7 months ago, I was on patrol through Basra and out with all my boys. And then now I'm just literally, you see all these little videos on Instagram and stuff, you know, when they're holding the weightlifting thing and they're pulling it. And then you're like, I've gone from this and it was like looked like a 50 cal in Iraq or whatever. And then next minute you're on the M25. It's sort of like it's quite a hard pill to swallow, you know, because you feel like I was doing all that cool stuff then and now I'm just doing nothing. But yeah, that made it a bit more difficult for me, to be honest.
What was your reason for leaving?
So me and my best mate had signed off at the same time because obviously, like I said to you before, I'd met a girl on leave, typical sort of thing, same as him, and we were like, right, we're signing off. So we signed off, and they said, look, you don't have to go to Iraq if you don't want to because you've signed off now. I said, nah, I'm not going to jack on the boys, and I wanted to go as well, and the same as him. It was his first tour, so we'd signed off, but we went anyway. And then, unfortunately, he was killed a month into the tour, and for me, because he was such a tight thread, like me and him were thick as thieves, we were like glue. Wherever I was, he was. Wherever he was, I was. And then when obviously he was killed, when he died, we basically, it was a nail in the coffin for me. Like, I was like, I'm definitely getting out. And then obviously I saw it through. So when I came back, and then I obviously ended up getting out of the military myself. Do I have regrets? I'd probably, if I could live my time again, I probably would have stayed in for another couple of years just to get like a Herrick done. But then on the flip side of things, there's no point looking back in the past, you know. But that was the reason I'd signed off, because I kind of wanted the normal life. You think, you know, you get the post-leave blues, you're sitting on your bed and you're like, oh, this is shit, what am I doing in here? And then you see all your mates on the piss, and then you ain't gonna have a missus because your missus is like, as soon as you leave, she's doing a dirty on you or whatever. I don't know, typical sort of thing. I was like, no, I want a normal life. I want a 9 to 5. I want to go for a pub with my mates. I want to play football on the weekends, and I want to see the missus. And then lo and behold, I leave the army, split up with her, and it was sort of like, right, well, that was pointless.
So what was your transition like?
Shit, to be honest, mate. Yeah, I have to be brutally honest, because I know a lot of lads go through it. For me, I was a very angry person when I left. I was getting in quite a lot of trouble. I didn't go down the typical route of what I hear a lot of lads hitting the drink or hitting like recreational drugs. For me, I started going to the gym, obviously as a way of like self-medicating. I'd make myself basically that tired that I could go to sleep, sort of thing, and it would chill me out. But then obviously, let's just say certain supplements find their way into your system when you go to a certain type of bodybuilding gym, and it was like pouring petrol on a fire, mate. It was the worst thing I ever done. I went downhill quick, to be honest. And my dad, fortunately, he's still in the military. He recognised something was up with me. So eventually I sort of swallowed my pride, went to a civvy doctor. They didn't really have a clue what was going on. And then I ended up speaking with Combat Stress. I hear mixed reviews about them, but they went out their way for me, to be honest. They've done me a solid. So my transition out was pretty tough, because at the time, like I said to you before, got back to camp after tour, and basically I just disappeared, mate. They weren't bothering me on orders. I literally rock up on a Monday, or I'd go to scoffing combats. So like people would see me about, and then they think, oh, he's doing a course. He's doing like a European driver's license thing, or whatever the courses they were running, you know, and I was literally just sat in my room playing Xbox and going gym. I literally rinsed that for months, just getting paid and just hiding. And then they were like, right, you got to do your medical and your D kit. And I remember going to the med center. They literally just said to me, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah." They were like, did an eye test, hearing test, and then literally went, "Right, sweet, see you later." They didn't really ask anything. But to be honest, I wouldn't have admitted it at the time because I didn't really know at the time because I was still kind of in the loop of being in the military. De-kitted, they literally like, just dumped all my kit on the thing, pushed it over there in a bin, and then hand your ID card in. And I drove out of the camp gates and I was like, "What? That's it?" And I literally, that was it. And I was like, driving on the A3 back from Tidworth, like, "Yeah, I'm free." And then a month later, I probably sat in my room crying into my pillow, like, but yeah, it wasn't easy, mate. But I kind of saw my way out of it through the gym. Like, obviously, like every other, like a lot of lads, I wouldn't say, because my main goal, obviously speaking to combat stress and stuff, was I wanted it to be my old self again. I was like, I want to be the old Carl. And then I've come to the realization now that I can't ever be the old Carl, but I can be like an adaptation of that and try and, obviously we have our shit days and we have our good days. It's just about having more good days than bad now, you know? And I've definitely seen to like, I feel like I've got a curb on it because it's sort of steadied out now because I know what does me right. I go to the gym. If I don't go to the gym for a few days, I get wobbly. I get weird. But for me, it's just all about finding your own sort of thing. But yeah, the thing about the military as well, when they gas you up, then they're like, "Oh, when you walk out, when you get out of the army, you'll walk into a job like you're an ex-squaddy, like you're not like you shitty civvy sort of thing." And I was thinking, sweet. I went in and applied for a job at Heathrow Airport, and it was just security. I got chinned off in the first day. I was like, "What the?" I was like, I was in Iraq like a few months ago, and I can't even sniff bags. I can't even look through bags. I thought that was just like kicking me.
That's probably why you didn't get the job, mate, if you started sniffing.
But yeah, that was almost another kick in the nads, like, because it was like another feeling of like, oh my God, what have I done? And then I ended up working for the prison service, which was, it done me a favor at the time. Initially, it was like one uniform to another, and it was giving me the sort of rush because obviously you're working in an environment which is volatile, so you'd be rolling around with lads or whatever. But after a while, it was, if anything, it was counterproductive to me for getting further down the line of my own sort of like improvement, because I'm constantly surrounded by aggression. At the time I was juiced up, and I wasn't quite I wasn't quite myself, you know. And it was annoying really, because I feel like the prison service they were quite they used me, because when I deemed it necessary to use force, when I felt threatened, I'd be getting like investigated, and I even got arrested once. Nothing come of it. But when they wanted someone who was smashing their cell up or taking out their cell, they'd be like, "Oh," they'd ring, they'd be like, "Where's Ginge?" And then they'd be like, "There's me getting a riot shield on," and they'd like, "Go and smash him," basically. I was like, "Oh, so when you want me to smash him, it's all right. But when I deem it necessary, they try to string me up." So I realized after a couple of years, I need to get out of there. And then I got out there, and I finally got on, I'm like working an engineering role now on the railway, where it's perfect for me because I'm literally working with other squaddies. Like, I got a lad from my regiment who I knew in my regiment who works with me, and I've managed to wangle myself into a good position through the gift of the gab, really. So I've seemed to have landed on my feet now, to be honest.
So when you come out and when you were angry, mate, where was that? What was the anger about?
I'd never in all honesty, I don't really know, but I feel like I've never dealt with like a loss of someone close before. And Jay was like, he was like my right hand man. And seeing him, obviously in that state as well, it's sort of like, these things have an impact on your mind. And at the time because when I spoke to a guy at Combat Stress, I was saying to him, I've seen, like I said before, on Telex 7, all those dead guys, and you see all that sort of stuff. And at the time, and if you ask me now, like, do you think it affected you? I genuinely think no, but you don't actually know. Like, it desensitizes you. Like that guy said on your previous podcast, I can fully relate to what he said. Yeah, I come home, and for months and months and months, I would constantly watch combat footage. I'll be watching lads in Iraq, I'll be watching lads in Africa, anything to do with like contacts or being amongst it. I was fixated with it, and he hit the nail on the head. I was trying to look for something to hurt me. Like, nothing would make me upset. Like, I didn't feel anything, because people were saying to me like, "Oh, you're very cold. Like, you don't really have any. You almost seem emotionless. Like, you're not bothered." And I was like, "Oh, you obviously can't relate to me because you're like Subi and you've never really gone for it." But when I heard that, I was like, it really like clicked. I was like, "Oh my God, I did that." Like, I was trying to like shock myself, and the same as him. I basically just don't ever watch anything like that anymore. And it seems to have like, I've made a conscious effort to not like do that. But it wasn't, I was the anger, I don't know, it just obviously is my symptom, because some people say they have flashbacks and stuff. The only thing I really got was I just felt like rage, and I had like one other little trigger. You know, you just feel burning tires, like rubber. That immediately takes me back to Iraq. Like, you know, the big rubbish tip outside the sheer flats, the burning tires, isn't it? I think it was just about.
Life that dude.
Sorry, mate.
Probably took 10 years off. I like that place then.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't easy by any means, but I feel like I've got there in the end.
Yeah, like it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's like, it's probably totally natural to come off. Like, if you've been essentially fighting for 6 months, or in, you know, not, I don't want to say fear for your life, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, you might be getting killed for 6 months, and then, you know, there's going to be that tail off to being able to feel kind of normal at some point. But like you said, with the juice or with drinking, I think we all kind of go and throw fucking petrol on a fire of something that's going to naturally be burning, and we go and, you know, we almost make it worse with our own decisions, really, don't we, in a lot of ways? But like, you got with the gym routine and that now, what would it be like if someone took the gym routine and everything away from you now? What do you reckon you'd be like?
Well, it happened, didn't it, during COVID, and it was noticeable, mate. It was noticeable. I hand on heart, it sounds weird. Like, to give it, if I don't go for 2 days, is right, maybe, but 3 or 4, anything like that, I feel myself. I know straight away, like, I'm going downhill. So during COVID, I really struggled, man, because they closed all the gyms. I was literally frantically trying to buy any sort of gym kit on eBay. I was scrounging anything, and I was literally in my garden looked like a bomb site, because I just had dumbbells everywhere. And like, I it's almost a it's almost a drug, mate. It's a dependency. Like, if I stop training, I'm banging. I know I'm in trouble, because even like I've had multiple operations this year, because I had a couple of benign tumors in my legs, and but I was still I was still going to the gym on crutches. Like, people look at me like a weirdo. I had these mood boots on, but I was just still there doing bicep curls, or I was doing something, because for me, it's like, it is self-medication, and there's definitely worse things to self-medicate yourself on. I've just accepted now that that's part of my life, and um, and to be honest with you, it's not a bad thing to be to have to do. But you know, other lads, like you say, turn to drink and drugs, and that can be a lot more detrimental, you know. But yeah, it is a dependency of some sort. I do need it. But yeah, it's funny, because like I said before, a lot of the lads are like, in the army, you couldn't stand PT. I was like, yeah, because you have to go out. I couldn't stand all that bullshit running. I was like, I'm doing what I want now, and at least you get to look all right through it. Like, you see fat guys who could run, they could run well. But like, when you go to the gym, it was sort of the first thing I'd sort of invested some effort and time into, and I started to notice like a correlation. You know, you're seeing the results, so that became addictive as well. But yeah, that's what worked for me, mate. I don't know what other people do, but I've never had an issue with like drink myself, or like recreational drugs or anything.
Do you Do you like drink at all, or are you like totally teetotal?
Well, socially, I do. I'll go football and that. And I'll have a few pints with my mates, or the odd occasion you might get a bit carried away, but nothing like I've never had to I've never hit the bottle, you know. I think I got a lot of that out of my system in the army, obviously, because obviously you get to regiment when you're 17 and then you're just smashing drinks for years. And I think I've done enough drinking in my time to now I don't need to chase that anymore. I just have a social drink now. I enjoy myself. It's never been an issue for me, thank God.
When did you start to decide to do like the competition? Would you call it competition bodybuilding? What would you call it?
Yeah, so I do there's different categories obviously in bodybuilding. I do men's physique, so you don't have to wear the little pants. You wear sort of board shorts, but you still got to be in pretty good nick. And obviously once I've been in the gym for quite some time and that, I started noting progress, and then you start chatting to other lads in the gym who are in decent shape, and you're like sort of trying to emulate them. And then you notice that they're doing competitions, and then I saw the sort of levels of discipline that were required to do it, and it literally just married up together. I was like, what I missed from the military, and then sort of like a civilian life activity I could do, and it literally just married up. And I was like, the regiment, it is quite miserable and quite antisocial at times, because obviously the diet is ridiculous. The amount of cardio you got to do is ridiculous, but it keeps me like on the straight and narrow, because like you've got to remain disciplined, literally, and it gives me a focus as well. Like, I've got something to focus on. If I haven't got anything to aim at, I feel kind of lost. So when I have a show, like I've got a show in 4 weeks' time, a prep for a show is normally like 3 or 4 months. So 4 months of the year, I am like ridiculously disciplined. Like, I weigh my food to the gram. It's like, it gives me something to stay very focused on, and it helps me. But the missus wants me to knock it on the head, because she obviously she used to compete as well. But I think she's trying to think more along the lines of that, maybe start having a family. So it's a very selfish sport. So I need to find the channel to channel. I'll still train, but I won't be doing it to this level, like this sort of dieting, this extreme. But so yeah, I think this is probably the last year I will be competing. So I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
Well, best of luck in it, mate. You do full in it next week. Don't have to worry. Go crazy.
Yeah. Just get fat and just lift steady weights, in it.
Big old strongman belly, mate. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you think we should?
No, I think you covered it, mate.
Yeah. Well, let's just finishes this then, mate, with everything you've been through, all your experiences during the army and after the army. Would you do it all again?
100%, without hesitation.